I was coming in as a second director, Ian Sharp being the first. And what Ian had done had made that group into a wonderful spirit of unity and of achievement, because it was a successful series. I actually watched all of his episodes and stole most of the good ideas. And the difference between myself and Ian Sharp, I think, was that Ian was one of the lads, had more of a communication with them as being almost one of them.
Ian Sharp, very down-to-earth, northern fellow, like me, really. Robert Young is a toff, incredibly well-spoken, and kind of seemed like the old school of, filmmaking.
My technique, I think, developed just as strongly with them, and I adored them, and still do.
I had a great respect for him. He was like the other side of the coin, as Ian Sharp was earthy and from Manchester and stuff. People I was used to dealing with. Robert was a slightly more exotic bird.
When I first met Michael, I could see and saw that he had been a wonderful Robin Hood. He had charisma, he had incredible looks that the girls just fell madly in love with. And he had this presence on screen which was wonderful.
Lay down your weapons! Attack them!
There were things like vanity, which a lot of actors have. Of course they do.
Now, it is market day tomorrow, and the town will be full of people.
He would have thongs that he would take up the side of his leg, which produced a much bigger bulge than most ballet dancers.
Michael was always like dashing and sort of flicking his hair and kind of in that way he does.
There was always that side of Michael which one had to just curb. But as I say, a leader and charismatic, he was actually wonderful.
Tell your guards to lay down their weapons.
Villain, have you no respect for the church?
Not while you're in it. Go on!
My character was mostly distrustful or frightened of everybody else, really. That was his kind of default setting.
Rat you! Now, I'm gonna ask you a question.
I remember Ray Winston getting me in the woods with a knife and threatening to cut off my ears, I think it was.
Which is your favourite ear? Is it your left? Or is it your right? Keep away from me, you villain!
And that is not very pleasant, because Ray Winston could actually do that. In character or out.
Don't call me a villain! Swivel-eyed old hypocrite!
I'd worked with Ray before. We were in Scum. We hadn't seen each other for a long time, so I think we thought it was rather amusing that the tables had sort of turned and suddenly he was doling out the punishment.
Who's the prisoner? Who is he? Her father! Whose father?
Her father, Sir Richard of Leeford.
I remember thinking, oh, good. A week on Robin of Sherwood. Down you come to Bristol, stay at a good hotel, and know that you're producing something which is going to be fun for the audience.
Whenever I could get a mate in that I knew and liked, that was always a bonus. And I think George was one of those.
This is the only time I ever worked with George Baker.
By heaven.
We didn't have a great deal to do together, but he was very pleasant, very charming, very kind of experienced film actor. So he knew his way around a camera.
The other thing that George had, for me, was he was a horseman.
I had a background of horsemanship. My father put me on a horse when I was 3. And I went on riding for 66 years.
You're going to the king?
Yes. I'm going to warn him of John's treachery and demand my lands back.
They produced a horse for me, and he used to just stand there, head down, and then the moment he heard, "Stand by!" Up he came, he was there already. On action, away he went. I remember John Nettles very well because I'd just done a Bergerac with him a little while ago. And we had really become quite good friends on that Bergerac. And indeed we still are, after all these years.
By the way, if, how can I put this? If he becomes irritated, leave him. Leave immediately, just bow and go.
But why?
It's safer.
He was so good. If you watched, he had this authority.
He was in the Tithe Barn at Bath, and he really swept along in his long robe and twisted it around, you know, and I thought, oh, there's a little bit of classical training coming in here somewhere.
They get into the gear and they become it. And the good ones, of course, make the gear look as if it's not fancy dressed.
The most valiant and noble prince, John, Count of Mortain and Lord of Gloucester.
Play, you idiot!
Guy of Gisborne was played by Robert Addy, and I remember the first time I saw Robert was on a horse. And he was on this hill, and he came galloping in, and I thought, my goodness, what a presence.
It seemed to work quite well, you know, his incompetence. There's always something funny about people kind of boasting and saying they're going to do these things and then not doing them very well, you know.
If they come for him, they'll come for you as well. Now then, if they succeed, which they will with me powerless down here, I want you to go with them. Wait your chance. And when you can, kill him.
Robert knew about horses in a way I didn't, so I think he sort of thought it a bit amusing that I didn't do horses, you know, and so he slightly patronised me.
Hugo, Philip Jackson, I remember thinking what a very good actor he was. And I remember specifically him riding in a cart.
We're out in some woods on this really bad track, and they got this cart so I could sit in a cart where everybody else was on a horse.
I remember looking at him and thinking, you're going to go a long way. A very fine actor, I thought.
The church has considerable influence with the barons, yes?
Sometimes, my lord.
Sometimes? You don't sound very convinced. Then I'll convince you.
We knew that royalty was coming in the prophecy, and somebody was going to play King John, or would eventually finish up as King John. So we thought, who's this going to be? And I think everybody was a bit surprised when Phil Davis turned up.
Now, you may think your position protects you from the consequences of this fiasco, but I am the king's brother, and one day, who knows what I may be.
King John was bright, savage, a lover, someone that you did not cross.
God's teeth! I've heard nothing but Robin Hoods that came to Nottingham! What's wrong with everyone in this miserable county? Are they all sheep?
I thought he brought this mad quality to it.
But my lord, it was you who commanded me to...
What? Lock him up! Lock him up!
It was quite scary when he lost his temper and started throwing chicken legs at people.
Dolan, my God, you wit! You must listen to me, my lord! Out!
Esther Charkham is the most brilliant casting director. She just has an instinct. If you look through all of the people that played in Robin of Sherwood, most of them are her ideas. And she said to me, while I was on the set, she said, just go outside and see there's an actor out there I want you to have a look at for John. And as I walked outside, there was Phil Davis. And I took one look and said, walk back in. I didn't even talk to him. I said, yep, he is brilliant.
The lion is dead, and the prophecy fulfilled.